I made him the biggest star in the industry, yet he incited his crazy fans to kill me. Now that I've been reborn, I'm going to watch him lose everything. Dad had kindly sponsored a financially struggling student and even brought him home. Looking at the clean-cut young man standing in front of me, I realized I had been reborn. In my previous life, I loved him with all my heart. When he said he didn't have money to eat, I handed over all my allowance without hesitation. When he said he was bullied at school, I stood by his side without a second thought, even if it meant going against the world to protect him. I went as far as spending enormous amounts of money and leveraging my connections to make him the biggest celebrity in the entertainment industry. But the first thing he did after rising to fame was spread false rumors that I had harassed and bullied him since childhood, inciting his crazed fans to attack me. Waking up in this new life, I was determined to see how his life would crumble without my help. 1. Olivia, come here. Let me introduce someone to you. Dad's gentle voice rang in my ears. This is Ethan, the student I've been sponsoring. You can call him Ethan. Following Dad's gaze, I saw a modestly dressed young man standing in the living room. He was slim and tall, looking at me with a mix of hope and nervousness. His hands tightly gripped the edges of his shirt, his fingers pale from the pressure. His expression betrayed deep unease. In my previous life, I had been utterly captivated by his pitiful yet stubborn appearance. He carried himself the same way back, then clearly uncomfortable with his surroundings, yet maintaining a straight back that conveyed a certain unyielding determination. That same determination, however, led to my gruesome death and the destruction of my family. Recalling how he had maliciously leaked my address to his rabid fans in the past life, allowing their fury to consume me, a sharp pain swept through my body once again. You can sponsor him, but bringing him home is too much. I'm not used to living with strangers, I said coldly as I walked over to the sofa and sat down, my tone detached and indifferent. Olivia, his family situation is quite unique. If I'm not mistaken, our family has sponsored plenty of underprivileged kids. If everyone were brought home like this, wouldn't this place turn into a slum? I interrupted Dad, casting a cool glance at Ethan. That's right, our family had sponsored dozens of students, and Ethan was just one of them. Because his father had passed away and his mother was gravely ill, Dad felt sorry for his plight and brought him to the city to study. I had once sympathized with him, often helping him with trivial matters and encouraging him to adjust quickly to his new environment. But the truth proved that my kindness was wasted. Some people are born ingrates no matter how much you pour your heart out to them, it's futile. Olivia, Ethan's situation is different. He has no relatives here, he's all alone. Can't you just let him stay for a while? He'll move out after the college entrance exams. Dad frowned, clearly surprised by my reaction. But now, just looking at this man disgusted me. I coldly retorted, if he has nowhere to stay, let him move into the apartment next door. It's not like our family can't afford housing. Dad looked at me disapprovingly. Olivia, why are you suddenly acting so cold? Just let him stay for a while, it's not like it's a big deal. Fine, I'll move into the dorms next week, and then you can let him move in, I snapped, turning away angrily without waiting for his response. Wait, don't be like this, fine. I'll let him stay in the apartment. Dad quickly relented, clearly at his wit's end. Turning to Ethan with an apologetic look, he said, You'll stay in the apartment next door for now, and I'll get someone to clean it for you later. Though Ethan seemed slightly disappointed, he nodded obediently. That's all right, sir. You've already done so much for me, I'm very grateful. 2. The next day was the start of the new school term. After breakfast, our driver, Mr. Smith, was already waiting outside with the car. As soon as I opened the door, I saw Ethan already seated in the car. Mr. Smith explained, Miss Olivia, Mr. Williams said Ethan's school is on the same route as yours, so he asked him to get up early and ride with you. Ethan looked at me expectantly, holding out the breakfast he had prepared with care. I glanced at the food in his hands, and a wave of disgust surged within me. No thanks. I don't want it, it's filthy. Ignoring his gesture, I turned and got into the front passenger seat. Wrinkling my nose deliberately, I said, Why does the car smell so cheap? Mr. Smith, open the windows, it's unbearable. Ethan froze at my words, clearly shocked by my bluntness. In my previous life, from the moment he stepped into our home, I had treated him with nothing but kindness. I even went out of my way to buy him expensive clothes and shoes, carefully concealing the price to avoid hurting his pride. Looking back now, I realized I had been nothing but a fool. Next time, let him find his own way to school. I don't like sharing a ride with others, I said, before leaning back in my seat and closing my eyes. Ethan and I attended the same private high school. When Ethan transferred to a new school, Dad made arrangements to enroll him there for convenience. As a result, we ended up in the same class. On the first day, Ethan eagerly ran to the school's snack shop, bought a mountain of snacks, and presented them to me like treasure. His eyes sparkled with anticipation and an almost desperate desire to win my favor, hoping to bridge the gap between us. After class, he would always find opportunities to approach me, trying to ease the tension in our relationship. It didn't take long for rumors about us to spread through the school like wildfire. In my previous life, I foolishly believed Ethan truly loved me. I supported his career, tirelessly investing in him, purchasing scripts, and finding directors. He promised me that once he achieved fame, he would officially announce our relationship to the world, including his fans. But in the end, his announcement was a public declaration that I was obsessively clinging to him. During those years, as I accompanied him in his pursuit of stardom, my own academic and professional life crumbled. When everything fell apart, I was shattered and decided to rebuild my life. Yet, I received a call from Ethan, asking to meet at a cafe we used to visit. He claimed he wanted to apologize in person. After much hesitation, I decided to go. But when I stepped into the cafe, it wasn't an apology waiting for me, it was a group of his rabid fans. They hurled insults at me, some even resorted to physical violence, surrounding me and beating me relentlessly. In the chaos, one deranged fan suffering from mental illness suddenly lunged at me with a knife, stabbing me dozens of times, each wound deep and gruesome. As I lay in a pool of blood, my life slipping away, I watched Ethan climb the ladder of success using the resources I had provided him, eventually becoming an award-winning actor. The fan who killed me escaped legal consequences by claiming insanity. All because of Ethan, I paid with my life. Perhaps fate pitied me, granting me a second chance to make different choices. This time, I won't repeat the same mistakes. As they say, karma always comes around. This time, I will personally witness his fall from grace. The school bell rang, signaling the end of the day, and the campus erupted in chatter and students flooding out of the gates. As I walked toward the exit, I noticed a sleek Maybach parked at the school entrance. Amid the murmurs of astonishment from the other students, a familiar figure leisurely approached one of the cars. It was Ethan. Wearing a designer school uniform, he was surrounded by a group of classmates eager to please. I stepped closer and noticed it was the car and driver Dad had arranged for Ethan. "No way, Ethan, your family drives cars this fancy," one of Ethan's friends remarked enviously. Ethan's lips curled into a smug smile, but as his gaze landed on me standing nearby, his expression froze. "Olivia, Dad mentioned you might join us for dinner at my place tonight. Would you like to come?" Ethan attempted to shift my focus. I declined his invitation, giving him a meaningful look before turning and walking away. "Ethan, your car is amazing. How about letting us take a ride someday?" Another classmate tried to cozy up to him. "Yeah, totally, you're new here, so maybe we can treat you to dinner sometime," others chimed in. Hearing their flattery, I couldn't help but scoff. It felt like my previous life had been a complete waste. I had never realized how fake Ethan could be. But then again, being an actor, it wasn't hard for him to pretend. And now I was curious, what if I exposed his true nature right here, right now? Wouldn't that be entertaining? Over the next few days, Ethan frequently skipped evening classes. According to my seatmate, he was dating someone. Rumors spread like wildfire among the students. The girl he was seeing turned out to be Sophie, another student with a similarly wealthy background. After class, the school corridors often displayed the sight of them walking hand in hand, basking in their sweet romance. At the same time, news of Ethan being a rich kid circulated wildly across campus. Some students even snapped pictures of him entering and exiting a luxury residential complex. Observant classmates noted his wardrobe was filled with high-end, internationally recognized brands, each item costing a fortune. The love story of two privileged teens was almost too idyllic, a fairy tale brought to life. In no time, their romance became the epitome of perfection. On Sunday morning, sunlight streamed through the windows and onto the dining table. Lazily making my way downstairs for breakfast, I noticed another figure seated beside Dad. Ethan looked a bit nervous, clutching his backpack tightly. "Good morning, Olivia," Dad greeted me warmly, then turned to Ethan and poured him a glass of fresh milk. "Ethan had some questions about his studies, so he came over to ask you," Dad explained, patting Ethan's shoulder and encouraging him to sit down. Ethan seemed tense, carefully retrieving a workbook from his bag and casting a hopeful glance in my direction. I glanced at the workbook in his hands, deliberately pretending not to notice, and chose the seat furthest from him at the table. Ethan clearly hadn't expected me to be so cold. He looked at me, then at Dad, as if he wanted to say something but hesitated. "Uncle, next week is my birthday. I was wondering if I could borrow your house to host a birthday party. Would that be okay?" He finally mustered the courage to ask. Hearing this, I couldn't help but roll my eyes. This guy is really shameless, I thought to myself. "This is my house. If you want to throw a party, why can't you book a hotel? You're not welcome here," I said, tilting my head slightly, a faint trace of mockery flickering in my eyes. Ethan was momentarily stumped by my words, but quickly turned to Dad with a pitiful look. "Uncle, I've already promised my classmates. Please let me have it here," he pleaded. Dad looked at me, seemingly conflicted. After hesitating for a moment, he turned to me and said, "Olivia, he's already promised his classmates. Just let him have this one. It's just for half a night, it won't disrupt you too much. That evening, why don't you go out for dinner? I'll give you some money." As he spoke, he began reaching for his phone. "No need," I replied. "I can afford my own dinner. Just make sure you clean up the house afterward." After a moment of thought, I finally agreed to their request. If Ethan wanted to play the big shot, I'd let him for now. Soon enough, Ethan's birthday party arrived. Contrary to my initial plan, I didn't go out for dinner that evening, but stayed to attend the party instead. The living room was filled with laughter and chatter. People were shouting and running around, their voices echoing throughout the house. Suddenly, a striking figure emerged from the basement. It was Sophie, Ethan's girlfriend, holding a bottle of crystal-clear Chateau Lafite in her hands, the wine Grandpa had treasured for years. "Ethan, look what I found," she exclaimed excitedly. "How about we don't stop drinking until we're completely wasted tonight?" Sophie said, leaning flirtatiously against Ethan. She looped her arm around his, her voice soft and syrupy, like cotton candy, evoking a tenderness that was hard to resist. I sat quietly on the side, watching the scene unfold. Then Sophie's gaze landed on me. She swayed unsteadily as she walked toward me, a hint of provocation in her eyes. "Olivia, why do you keep staring at my boyfriend?" she asked, placing her delicate hand lightly on my shoulder, her tone laced with challenge. I gave her a calm glance but didn't respond. Unwilling to let it go, she pressed on. "I heard you used to cling to Ethan when you were kids. He was so annoyed by you. If it weren't for your families being so close, he wouldn't have invited you to his birthday party." "Cling to Ethan? So that's what he's been telling people." "Ethan is my boyfriend now," Sophie said, her tone sharp with warning. "You'd better not try anything with him, otherwise I won't be so nice to you." With that, she turned and walked away. The night deepened, and the stars dotted the sky, as if signaling the end of the evening's revelry. Most of the guests had tired themselves out and were calling rides to head home. Meanwhile, Ethan and Sophie were still on the staircase, locked in an overly passionate kiss, their lips practically glued together. They clung to each other at the corner of the stairs like two butterflies entwined, completely consumed by their ardor. The crowd that had been watching them had long since dispersed, leaving only the occasional murmurs and laughter lingering in the air. When the party finally ended, I arranged for a driver to take the remaining guests home and then went downstairs to call Uncle, who was arriving from the airport. At 1 a.m., I returned to the house with Uncle, who had just returned from abroad. Using the excuse of grabbing an extra blanket for him, I headed to my room. The moment I opened the door, I froze in place. "Ah!" my scream echoed through the house. Uncle rushed over immediately. Before us lay two bare bodies tangled together on my bed, moving fervently, accompanied by suggestive noises. "Who are you? What are you doing in Olivia's room?" Uncle demanded. The two on the bed seemed to realize what was happening and turned their heads abruptly. "Ah!" came another piercing scream, sharp enough to blow the roof off. Ethan and Sophie scrambled to separate, frantically grabbing for their clothes. I stared at the disheveled pair without blinking. "Ethan, I loaned you the house, not my room for this." My tone was calm and cold, like the stillness before a storm. In that moment, Sophie seemed to snap out of a dream. Her eyes widened in shock, then burned with fury as she turned her gaze on Ethan. Her face went from flushed red to ghostly pale, then back to a deep, angry crimson, like a delicate flower wilting in an instant. "Ethan, what the hell is going on? This isn't your house." She roared, her voice like thunder reverberating in the empty room. Ethan's face turned ashen, his bloodshot eyes glaring at me as though I were his mortal enemy. Through gritted teeth, he spat, "Olivia, you're so despicable. You know Dad wouldn't cut me off easily, so you use this to humiliate me." Ethan reached out, attempting to calm Sophie's fury, but she shoved him away with force. He stumbled back a few steps, barely managing to steady himself, his face etched with embarrassment. He could only watch helplessly as Sophie turned and walked away, leaving him glaring at me with resentment. "From today on, our family will stop supporting you financially," I declared coldly. "No, you can't. How am I supposed to continue my studies?" Ethan's face turned ashen, drained of all color at the sound of my words, as if the blood in his veins had been frozen. "Whether you continue your studies or not has nothing to do with me," I interrupted him, my tone devoid of any emotion. "After what you've done, did you really think you could stay in my presence?" Ethan glared at me, fury and frustration burning in his eyes. "No way you planned this, you brought them here on purpose." His voice rose as if he'd suddenly pieced something together. "Olivia, why would you do this? What have I ever done to you? Why don't you ask yourself that question?" I tilted my head slightly, avoiding his angry, unwilling gaze. My tone was calm, almost indifferent. "Tonight, you should focus on figuring out how to explain to your classmates what Sophie has revealed about you. Get out. Don't ever let me see you again," I said in disgust, waving him away as if the mere sight of him made me sick. Ethan clenched his jaw, glaring at me one last time before turning and walking away. Ethan's carefully fabricated dream of being a wealthy heir shattered like a bubble. His vanity and lies were ruthlessly exposed, evaporating like morning dew under the sunlight. Sophie, furious at his deceit, led a group of classmates in exacting cruel revenge against him. His desk was stuffed with all sorts of insects and spiders, and after class, a group of boys cornered him in the restroom, dumping buckets of icy, filthy water over him. In the biting cold of winter, Ethan could only hide in a bathroom stall, his body trembling, his breath visible in the frigid air. His wet clothes clung to his skin, and the draft seeping through the cracks made the chill seep into his bones. Sophie, once the school's queen bee and the dream girl of countless boys, had always protected Ethan because of his supposed affluent background. But now that his facade as a rich kid had crumbled, revealing him as a mere scholarship student, and with Sophie publicly breaking ties with him, no one felt the need to hold back anymore. Standing at a distance, watching Ethan's miserable state, I couldn't help but feel a surge of satisfaction. But my moment of triumph was interrupted when Dad's secretary stopped me at the school gates. "Miss, the CEO has asked you to come to the office." I was escorted to the company, wondering what Dad could want with me. Could it be that he had found out I had once again ranked first in my grade and wanted to surprise me? With that hopeful thought in mind, I excitedly pushed open the door to the CEO's office. However, a heavy file came hurtling toward me like a meteor out of control, narrowly missing my face and landing with a thud on the floor. Looking up, I saw Dad glaring at me, his face a storm of disappointment and anger. Standing beside him was Ethan. Gone was his school uniform. He now wore tattered clothes, his arms deliberately exposing bruises and scratches. "Olivia, how dare you stop Ethan's financial support without my permission?" Dad's voice was like a cold steel hammer, striking hard against my heart. I felt the world spin around me, every ounce of hope and joy dissolving into nothingness. Ethan's eyes brimmed with tears as he choked out, "Uncle, this is all my fault. Don't blame Olivia." Furious, I retorted, "Dad, I've told you everything. It was Ethan. He and his girlfriend were doing that in my room. How could we possibly continue funding him? Even if Ethan did something that made you uncomfortable, you could have just switched rooms, or better yet, given him your room. I let it slide when you threw a tantrum and kicked him out last time. But this time, You will reinstate his support immediately." Dad's tone was firm, his disappointment cutting deep. I forced myself to stay calm, though my emotions churned like a storm within. Without another word, I turned on my heels and stormed out of the office, my heart heavy with resentment. The moment I shut the office door behind me, through the small gap, I saw Dad gently patting Ethan on the shoulder. The scene resembled that of a father comforting his own son more than anything else. I overheard Dad's soft words to Ethan. "No one at school will bother you anymore. Don't be upset. I promised your mother I'd take good care of you." As night fell, I waited until I was sure Dad hadn't come home before slipping quietly into his room. I tiptoed toward his study and began searching. Finally, hidden inside an old, dusty book that seemed utterly unremarkable, I found an aged photograph. In the photo, a man was affectionately holding a woman close, their smiles radiating happiness and sweetness. That man was my dad, and the woman bore a striking resemblance to Ethan. At that moment, my heart felt like it was being tightly squeezed, and a wave of indescribable emotions surged through me. Back then, he and Mom hadn't married yet, which made it clear that Ethan was the son of the woman in the photo. He might even be Dad's illegitimate child. Thinking back to my previous life, where I was utterly infatuated with Ethan, I remembered all those wasted days and the times I trended online due to insults from his obsessive fans. A sense of nausea crept up in my heart. No wonder Dad had always favored Ethan. From my past life to this one, his attitude had never changed. The thought made me feel a wave of coldness within. Silently, I wiped away the tears at the corner of my eyes and placed the photo back in its original spot. The next day, I walked into school, completely changing my stance. In front of the entire class, I started defending Ethan. "Olivia, what's wrong with you? Why are you defending this liar?" Sophie's voice was sharp like a knife. She stormed over to confront me. "Ethan is a poor student our family is sponsoring. Dad repeatedly warned me to treat him well," I said, feigning a troubled expression as I glanced at Ethan. Tears shimmered in my eyes as though I might cry at any moment. Otherwise, Dad said he wouldn't let me off easily. As soon as my words fell, whispers began spreading through the classroom. Everyone's gaze shifted to Ethan, filled with suspicion and curiosity. How could a poor student be more important than his own daughter? Could it be that Ethan is your dad's illegitimate child? A male student boldly speculated, sparking an uproar among the class. I quickly glanced at Ethan, whose face had turned pale. He forced a smile and said, "No way, I have my own parents. How could I possibly be Olivia's dad's illegitimate son? Uncle just sympathizes with me, that's why he cares about me so much." "All right, Ethan isn't my dad's illegitimate child. Don't spread rumors," I said firmly, putting an end to the discussion. "Actually, I've been regretting how I treated Ethan a few days ago. I want to apologize for my rash behavior toward him," I continued, turning to look at Ethan softly. "I know you might be facing some difficulties right now, so I'd like to invite you to stay at my place for a while. Since your apartment has been emptied out, you can stay at my home for the next few days." Ethan clearly hadn't expected me to say that and seemed a bit surprised. Still, he nodded and agreed. Dad was taken aback when I personally brought Ethan home. But seeing my composed and unbothered demeanor, his furrowed brow gradually relaxed. To make Ethan feel at home, I suggested he move into the room he had previously used for certain purposes. I also instructed the housekeeper to prepare brand new toothbrushes and toiletries for him. Dad watched my actions with a hint of approval in his eyes, even praising me for becoming more thoughtful and mature. I watched Ethan use the toothbrush, then quickly seal it in a bag and replace it with an identical new one. The sealed bag was sent to a testing center, along with a sample of Dad's hair. Ethan was only a few months older than me. If he were truly Dad's child, it would mean Dad had cheated during his marriage with Mom. The company was founded by my grandfather. After his passing, the company was left to Mom and Uncle. Before Mom passed away, she handed a contract to her lawyer and announced it to the entire company. The contract explicitly stated that if Dad had an illegitimate child, he would lose his shares and resign as the company's chairman. Thinking back to Dad's subtle reaction when he found out about my feelings for Ethan and the harassment from Ethan's fans, I couldn't help but take a sharp breath. However, when the test results came back, I was surprised to find that Ethan wasn't Dad's child. After Ethan moved into my home, he started behaving as he had in my previous life, acting as though he was the master of the house. He indulged in lavish meals every day, and his wardrobe quickly filled with countless high-end clothes. Whenever I saw the ambition gradually gleaming in his eyes, I would smirk coldly to myself, recalling the old saying, "To destroy someone, first let them become arrogant." I had the housemaids casually mention to Ethan that if Dad ever had an illegitimate child, it could jeopardize his shares in the company. As expected, one evening on my way home from school, Ethan voluntarily suggested we take a walk by the river, saying he wanted to share his thoughts with me. The night was dark, the cool breeze by the river carrying a slight chill. Birds chirped softly on distant branches, adding a touch of vitality to the quiet night. Ethan and I walked side by side along the trail by the river. He handed me a bottle of water casually, a faint smile on his face. "I don't know why you were so hostile to me before, but now that we've spent some time together, I hope we can clear the air." I took the drink from his hand, glancing at the flickering streetlights by the riverside. My eyes darted toward Ethan with an unreadable expression before I casually took a sip from the drink. His face lit up with satisfaction, and he immediately downed his own bottle. But what Ethan didn't know was that the moment he approached me, I had already switched our drinks. It didn't take long before his steps became unsteady, his face flushed a deep red. He touched his forehead in confusion, finally realizing something was wrong. "Olivia, you switched the drink I gave you." Ethan's face contorted with anger as he roared furiously. His eyes bulged as if he wanted to devour me whole. But it was too late. At that moment, a group of thugs from the park began sauntering toward us. Seeing them, I deliberately raised my voice and said, "This is my dad's only illegitimate son. If you kidnap him, my dad will pay a hefty ransom for his release." With that, ignoring Ethan's pale expression, I turned and sprinted into the night. The next day, sunlight bathed the campus. Ethan was conspicuously absent from his seat in the classroom. When the bell rang to signal the end of class, I strolled leisurely out of the room, only to find Dad waiting for me at the school gate. Standing beside him was Ethan, his face marked with visible bruises, his eyes burning with both reluctance and fury. As soon as Dad saw me, he strode over. Without hesitation, he raised his hand and slapped me across the face. My right ear buzzed, and a sharp pain stung my lip. A moment later, I tasted the metallic tang of blood. Just then, Uncle, who had come to pick me up after work, saw what had happened. His face darkened with rage as he stormed over, grabbed Dad by the collar, and slapped him hard across the face. "What gives you the right to hit Olivia?" Uncle's voice was filled with anger. "Uncle, you're finally here," I cried out with relief, the fear and grievance I had bottled up spilling over. I had anticipated that Dad would come looking for me, so I had called Uncle before school that morning, asking him to come pick me up. Uncle clenched his fists, his gaze icy as he looked at Dad. "William, what's your problem? You even dare to hit your own daughter?" Dad clutched his nose as blood trickled out. Furious, he yelled, "This is a family matter. Lucas, it's none of your business." He tried to stem the flow of blood with his hand, a scene that looked almost comical. Uncle scoffed coldly. "It's my business because I promised Dad and my sister that I wouldn't let anyone harm Olivia. And who do you think you're calling an outsider?" Dad's composure cracked at the mention of my mom. He lost the calm demeanor he usually maintained. The truth was, before marrying into my mom's family, Dad had been just an ordinary man struggling to make ends meet. It was my mom and grandpa who had elevated his status to where he was today. Realizing something, his expression shifted. He eventually lowered his hand and muttered, "Let's drop this matter, but don't you dare treat Ethan like that again." "But Dad," Ethan protested, his tone full of indignation. "This is your fault in the first place. Apologize to Olivia right now." To everyone's surprise, Dad suddenly turned and slapped Ethan across the face. Tears instantly welled up in Ethan's eyes. Through gritted teeth, he mumbled an apology to me before Dad dragged him away. The boardroom. The recording I had secretly taken at school of Ethan and Dad, along with the forged DNA test results linking Ethan and William, were like twin bombs detonating in the board meeting, causing an uproar. The tension in the room was palpable. The composed expression Dad had been maintaining darkened instantly. "Mr. William, stop playing dumb. You should start thinking about your resignation." Uncle said coldly as he stood to the side, his gaze sharp as a blade. William, my father, had tried to maintain his composure, but upon hearing Uncle's words, his face twisted in rage. He glared at Uncle, his eyes wide. What are you implying?" Uncle smirked, his tone icy. "Don't forget, William. Back when you made promises to my sister in front of the board, you swore that if you ever had an illegitimate child, all the shares under your name would be unconditionally transferred to Olivia." With Uncle's words, the atmosphere in the meeting room grew even more tense. Dad had once relied on the support of wavering shareholders to secure his position as CEO of the company. But these same shareholders were now turning against him, their loyalty swaying in the direction of their interests. It was unclear what Uncle had promised them, but today, they unanimously opposed Dad's continued role as chairman. That night, the news of William's ousting from the company exploded like a thunderclap, hitting the headlines of major financial news outlets at precisely midnight, shaking the entire business world. For the time being, my uncle would take over the company. He promised to hand the reins back to me once I graduated from college, back at the villa. I ordered the staff to throw Ethan and William out of the house with an expressionless face. Ethan, this cold-hearted and greedy man, still had no idea that William had already been ousted. He yelled furiously, his voice sharp and grating. "Olivia, just wait till Dad gets here, you'll pay for this," his voice echoed through the spacious villa. This villa had always been under my name. It was a birthday gift from my grandfather to my mom before he passed away, and it was my rightful property. William first tried to calm Ethan with a soothing tone. Then he turned to me, looking at me with a pained expression. "I'm still your father, and he's practically your brother. Do you really have to be this ruthless, leaving no room for compromise?" He let out a deep sigh, his voice tinged with helplessness. "Brother," I let out a light, mocking laugh. Casually pulling a DNA test report from the folder in my hands, I tossed it in front of William with ease. "Oh, I almost forgot to tell you. That so-called proof I had before. It was fake. This is the real paternity test for you and Ethan." William's face turned ashen instantly. His hands trembled as he opened the document, each word in the report striking him like a heavy blow to the heart. You dared to deceive me?" His voice shook with anger as he slapped Ethan hard across the face. His voice grew louder and louder, the fury in it transforming into despair. Ethan's face instantly turned pale. He stared blankly at the report, as if the entire world was collapsing before his eyes. His dreams of wealth and luxury shattered in that very moment. I watched the spectacle unfold with cold detachment. With a wave of my hand, I signaled the staff to escort them out of the villa. From that day on, I never saw them again. Occasionally, I'd hear snippets about them from others. William, unable to cope with the blow, began to lose his grip on reality and eventually developed dementia. He would often mutter to himself about having a son. As for Ethan, he dropped out of school after the shock of the revelation. Some said he ended up working at a nightclub as a host. But before long, he fell ill, his body wasting away until he was nothing but skin and bones. Meanwhile, I continued forward on my life's path. After countless days and nights of hard work, I finally achieved my goal. At 18, I gained admission to a prestigious international university, majoring in finance. By the time I turned 22, Uncle successfully handed me the reins of the family business. In the days to come, I will continue to lead the company to greater heights and carve out a brilliant future for myself, writing my own remarkable story. End of the first story. Subscribe to my channel if you like my stories. Don't miss the second exciting story. Story 2. I watched the woman kneeling at my feet and the scumbag standing behind her. "Could you kneel a little farther away? I find it filthy." At the gala, Ethan had the audacity to bring another woman with him, all while keeping it a secret from me. Up until that moment, we were celebrated as a model couple within our social circle and had a lovely 4-year-old daughter. But now, exposed for his betrayal, the woman clung to my leg, pleading, "You're already the CEO of a major corporation. Why be so domineering? Ethan and I only have each other." Behind her, Ethan glared at me with indignation, as if I were some kind of cruel villain. I couldn't help but applaud their theatrics. "Could you kneel farther away, please? You're dirtying my shoes." I'm Liv, widely recognized as the princess of high society. For my 18th birthday, my father Victor, the head of our family's business empire, gifted me 18 luxury villas. If we're talking about wealth, no one in this city could compete with me. Ethan's infatuation with me was no secret either. The entire city was aware. Back in college, he would follow me around tirelessly. When he announced publicly that he was going to pursue me, the high-achieving, unattainable Ice Queen, he became the laughingstock of our circle. Victor once told me, "Olivia, you don't need to marry for the family's benefit. Just choose someone you love." Ignoring the advice of my friends, I chose Ethan. But I never imagined that, after just 4 years of marriage, I'd find myself facing such a humiliating scene. Ethan had brought along his childhood sweetheart from his hometown to attend the gala, dancing intimately with her under the spotlight. Perhaps Ethan failed to understand just how powerful the Olivia family is in this city. Any small indiscretion on his part would quickly reach my ears. So when I got word of their little rendezvous, I decided to show up and see the drama unfold for myself. I arrived to find the two of them swaying on the dance floor, looking every bit the carefree, handsome couple. Ethan in his sharp suit, and her a rural beauty named Sophia clinging to his arm. I sat down casually with a glass of red wine, watching their performance. Ethan spotted me from across the room, his confident expression instantly freezing into one of panic. He quickly let go of Sophia's hand and made his way over to me, his head hung low. "For Mia, you know," he stammered. "I was just buying toys for her, and somehow I ended up here. She must be a saleswoman, right?" I swirled my wine, my face betraying no emotion. The tension between us must have clued Sophia into my identity. Her demeanor instantly shifted, and without warning, she dropped to her knees in front of me. "Please don't be angry," she begged. "It was my idea to ask Ethan to bring me along. I just wanted to see what the high life was like." Tears streamed down her face as she continued, "I admire Ethan, but it's all my fault. He's been so unhappy lately. You're a wealthy heiress, and I'm just an ordinary girl. I only want to quietly stay by Ethan's side." Her melodramatic sobbing, straight out of a cheesy soap opera, made me feel physically ill. I could barely suppress the urge to vomit. Taking advantage of the crowd's distraction, Sophia leaned in close and hissed, "Besides your money, what do you even have to offer? Ethan is mine." I raised an eyebrow, meeting her gaze head-on. Her eyes were filled with jealousy and malice. Her performance was so convincing that she fooled not only the onlookers murmuring around us but also Ethan himself. I had to laugh. Was I really being cast as the villainous wife abusing her power? Really? A mistress playing the victim. This kind of drama's been out of style for years. I took a sip of my wine, then nudged the hem of her dress with my toe. "Go on, crawl farther away if you're going to act. Just don't dirty my shoes." Some friends of mine, Fiona, and a few others from our social circle happened to walk by. Well, who's this? A performer?" Fiona teased, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "I've never seen anyone justify being a homewrecker so shamelessly. You'd think she was in the right? Liv, next time something like this happens, call us. I'll bring popcorn." Their laughter stripped away Sophia's facade, exposing her true colors. Ethan, looking like a panicked cat with its tail stepped on, rushed to shield Sophia behind him. "She's not a homewrecker," he snapped. "We've known each other since childhood. Olivia, you have everything. Can't you just leave her alone?" For years, I had gazed at Ethan's face, believing in his sincerity. But the more I experienced the cutthroat world of high society, the more I cherished genuine, unpretentious love. I had married Ethan because of his earnest affection, but in just a few short years, his love had become entangled with ambition, losing its original purity. Now he stood before me, glaring at me as if I were the enemy, all for the sake of another woman. He was nothing like the passionate, gentle young man who had once pursued me. Sophia's voice, soft and pitiful, drifted over. "I know I'm just an ordinary girl and you look down on me, but I only want to work at Ethan's company and live a quiet life. Please, don't be angry." I chuckled coldly. "I don't look down on ordinary people. What I despise are women like you, who knowingly interfere in someone else's marriage and use men to climb the social ladder." Sophia's face turned ashen as I dismissed her protests. The crowd, emboldened, began to jeer at her. Ethan, unable to bear Sophia's humiliation, wrapped her protectively in his arms and led her away. The scene was eerily reminiscent of how he used to shield me from criticism. So much for his promises of undying love. They were worth less than nothing. That night when I returned home, Mimi was still awake, sitting in her princess-themed bedroom. She looked up at me with her bright, innocent eyes. "Mommy, where's Daddy?" "Mimi, be a good girl and go to sleep. Daddy's busy with work. He'll be back later," I said, tucking her in. "Mommy, then can you say it? The princess bedtime story?" "All right, Mommy's little princess Mia, time for the princess to go to bed." Mia was the result of my painstaking effort to bring her into this world. Back then, Ethan had tenderly suggested that she should take my last name instead of his. After Mia arrived, our little family of 3 became noticeably happier and more harmonious. Ethan would smile as he picked out items for our daughter and selected a preschool for her. I would learn to cook meals that father and daughter both loved. Under the warm glow of the lights, the aroma of dinner would fill the air, and we seemed just like any ordinary happy family of 3. But now, everything is falling apart. Ethan came home close to midnight, and I was waiting for him in the living room. The TV was playing a drama about marriage, and the loud arguing on screen only added to my irritation. As soon as he walked in, before I could say a word, he was already defensive. Sophia had trouble finding a job before. We bumped into each other by chance, and since we've known each other since childhood, I helped her out by giving her an assistant position at Ethan Co., working directly for me. "There's no need for you to overthink this," he said, his tone agitated. "So what you're saying is that she's cozying up to a married man, being ambiguous, and I'm the one being petty? Can you honestly say you don't like her? Not even a little bit." He not only kept Sophia close, but even brought her to company events. Who would believe there's nothing going on? Ethan had always been known for his upright demeanor. In all our years of marriage, there hadn't even been the slightest hint of infidelity. He'd often say that he had a sort of moral cleanliness. It was part of why people in his circle referred to him as the good guy. But the way he treated Sophia was different. Was this his way of doing charity? As he began to falter and grow defensive, he repeated himself, almost desperate to convince me. "I haven't cheated, Olivia. I haven't slept with her. Can't you just be more understanding? Mia is still young. We could still live peacefully." Amazing. His reasoning made me question how I ever thought he was a good man. I stared at him for a moment before deciding to throw his pillow out and make him sleep in the guest room for the night. The next day, I went to work as usual. Mia clung to Ethan, hopping and kissing him goodbye before heading off to preschool. Ordinarily, I worked at Ollie Co. While Ethan worked at Ethan Co., we'd only see each other at home. Recently, though, our 2 companies had begun collaborating on a business project. When I opened my work email, I couldn't help but laugh to myself. It seemed Sophia was doing quite well for herself. There was even an apology email from her. She was like a flea, always jumping to where she could be noticed. The email was full of vague excuses how her family was struggling financially, how she had always admired Ethan's excellence, and how he had generously helped her through her difficulties. She hoped I wouldn't make things hard for him and emphasized how good of a person he was. How sweet. Apparently, I, the wife, might make things hard for him, while she, the mistress, was considerate and thoughtful. The bitterness of her words was so strong, it could steep into a pot of Earl Grey tea. How could someone so amateurish cause Ethan to argue with me? That afternoon, Ethan came to represent his company at a project meeting, and Sophia tagged along, dressed in a sharp business suit. I watched her present her poorly prepared PowerPoint. It was a mess. She glanced up at me nervously, then stumbled over her words even more. "All right, is this the best you can do? Stop wasting my time." I cut her off impatiently. "Olivia, I can redo it." "No need. If this is the standard at Ethan Co., then I suggest you stop trying. If you can't handle it, don't take it on. Leave." My tone was icy. I simply took the presentation materials myself and began reviewing them. Ethan pulled the now teary Sophia behind him and said, "She's new. Could you cut her some slack? Everyone needs time to learn." I glanced at him, wondering if his brain was on the fritz again. This is what she came up with? Really? You're letting her ruin our project. Olivia, don't go too far. Too far. If you want to treat garbage like treasure, that's fine, but don't drag us into it. Business is business. This level of work wouldn't even make it on the streets. Miss Olivia, I know you don't like me. I only took this on because Ethan wanted me to try and improve. It's my fault. Please don't take it out on Ethan. He's been so unhappy lately. Sophia stood next to Ethan, practically defending him. Oh, he's unhappy. That's news to me. And you're telling me this because… Who are you again? His secretary. Ethan stayed silent, his breathing growing heavier. I ordered the irrelevant people out of the room, dragging Sophia and her pitiful expression along with them. Then I sat next to Ethan, tugging at his tie to make him lower his head. His face was still the same as when he followed me around in college, handsome and earnest. The same sharp features, the same strong stance. But how had things changed so much? Leaning close to his ear, I whispered, "She says you're often unhappy. Have I made you unhappy, or is it that only she can make you happy?" "Olivia, don't do this. I think of Sophia as a little sister. Can we just carry on with our lives?" His voice was deep, tinged with restrained anger. "What life? You bring her around everywhere to disgust me. Do you want to push me to the edge? Do you think I'm the kind of woman who'd tolerate a husband with unclear boundaries? Didn't I make it clear before we got married, if you ever pull this crap, we'll get divorced?" I snapped, my words cutting through the air. Even if I wasn't the passionate type, we'd been together for so many years, dating and then marrying. Before the wedding, I had warned him in no uncertain terms. If he ever felt the urge to stray, he just needed to let me know and we'd go our separate ways. He had laughed back then, promising it would never happen. So how many years has it been now? Using the threat of divorce to force me into submission? Is that it? I didn't cheat, and I did nothing wrong. Ethan's voice was sharp, laced with frustration. "Olivia, you're impressive. Everyone knows how capable you are. They all think I'm some freeloader living off your success, don't they? You ask me to do something, and I have to comply, right? Well, now I insist on having Sophia as my assistant. So what? If it weren't for my decisions, the support from Olivia's company, do you think the Carter Group would have grown this fast? The choices I made, weren't they the right ones? And now you're dragging Sophia into this. What are you trying to prove? When I stayed up late working overtime, the only person who kept me company was her making coffee for me. And you, other than your empire and Mimi, what am I to you? Do you even know what people say when I'm out negotiating deals? They say I married a great wife and should treat you well. I'm like your dog. Mimi is my daughter, but her last name is Bennett, not Carter. She'll mostly inherit Olivia's company. Do you have any idea how much pressure I've been under from my uncles and cousins because of this?" Ethan slumped in his chair, resting his head on his hand, his face a mixture of frustration and suppressed anger. I finally saw the weight of his grievances clearly. But still, wasn't it Ethan who pursued me, who insisted on marrying me, who accepted Olivia's company's help? Wasn't it Ethan who agreed before our marriage that only one child would carry my last name? Things have changed. Ethan had argued with me multiple times over Sophia, his assistant. Our issues had become the talk of the town, and the once admired couple we were had shattered into pieces. The blame largely fell on Ethan. Affairs weren't uncommon in our social circles, but it was rare for someone to flaunt their infidelity so openly at social events, especially when the spouse they were disrespecting was Olivia. Ethan had married up. I think he's forgotten how much his parents benefited after our marriage, how much Olivia's family supported them. From a fledgling business to a rising middle-class empire, every step of their ascent was fed by Olivia's resources. Back then, Ethan's pursuit of me was relentless. But 4 or 5 years into our marriage, and suddenly, there's this childhood sweetheart. Our relationship was like a fresh apple, bright and passionate at first. Even sliced open, it remained good for a while. But before you know it, it turns old, dull, and rotten, painful to look at, impossible to swallow. The autumn chill had started to seep into the air, cutting through to the bone. After returning home, Victor and Grace called me. "That neighbor's kid, Sophia, we had no idea she had such intentions. You're our daughter-in-law, Liv, a proper one. Olivia, don't be angry." Victor's already scolding Ethan. Mimi is 4 now, and he still hasn't learned to behave. He's probably just stressed and feeling emotional lately. We'll talk to him. You two should work things out. I've always treated you like my own daughter. Don't let this other woman come between you. Victor and Grace were surprisingly sensible, though it was no surprise. Their livelihood depended on me. Thanks to Olivia's resources, the Carter family had transformed from a modest business into a rising star in the industry, in just a few years. Ethan argued with me because he felt emboldened by his newfound status. After hanging up, I went to pick up Mimi. I hadn't had time to make her favorite meal lately because of work. Mimi was mostly cared for by the nanny, but she especially loved the sweet and sour ribs I made. I had promised her that no matter how busy I got, I'd make them for her at least once a week. While I was cooking in the kitchen, Mimi asked me repeatedly, "Where's Daddy? Daddy likes these too. Tell him to come home soon. Daddy's busy." I hadn't decided how to explain the situation to her yet, but I miss Daddy. "Mommy, can you call him?" My hands froze for a moment before resuming their work. "Okay, I'll call him." The kitchen lights cast a warm glow on the sweet and sour ribs I had just finished. Their glossy red color was incredibly appetizing, but Mimi wouldn't get to eat them with her father tonight. Half an hour earlier, I received a photo from Sophia. She and Ethan were together in a hotel bed. I spent the night sleepless, wondering how to handle Ethan's affair, especially for Mimi's sake. I needed to think carefully. The next morning, after dropping Mimi off at school, I ran into him. He stumbled toward me, disheveled, with visible marks hinting at his night's activities. It was an eyesore. As soon as he saw me, Ethan rushed forward and hugged me, reeking of another woman's perfume. He leaned in, trying to kiss my cheek, his voice trembling with guilt and unease. "Olivia, I messed up. Please forgive me, okay? Let's fix things. I won't say those things anymore, I promise. Can we move forward?" His tone was laced with a desperate vulnerability. "Really?" I asked, my eyes closed, holding my breath. We both knew exactly what I meant. Ethan nodded miserably, and I let out a cold laugh. "Ethan, do you smell yourself? You stink of betrayal. Stay away from me, you make me sick." Later, I learned that after being scolded by Victor, Ethan went to a bar to drink away his sorrows. Drunk out of his mind, Sophia showed up to take him home. In the car, Ethan poured out his grievances, how much pressure and hardship he'd endured over the years, always being overshadowed by me. He lamented that while others treated him with respect, he always had to bow before me, and the disparity had become unbearable. Sophia confessed her admiration and secret feelings for him, saying she didn't mind being by his side, even if it was just to make him feel better. A domineering and arrogant wife, and a humble, fresh-out-of-college girl who looked up to Ethan. His ego found a strange satisfaction in this dynamic. Staring at the girl who admired and longed for him, Ethan couldn't help but respond to her. They ended up tangled up in his car and later in a hotel room. It wasn't until this morning that Ethan realized what he had done. He seemed scared out of his wits, hurriedly fleeing back home to find me, Liv. I didn't say much, just looking at him made me feel sick. I couldn't forget how Ethan, in his younger years, had tried so eagerly and passionately to squeeze his way into my world, claiming a corner of my heart. I still remember the loving gaze in his eyes during that golden autumn. But now he had become a cowardly and despicable man, a shadow of his former self. Our little home this morning reached the point of no return. At 6 p.m. after work, I picked up Mia and went to my parents' house. I hadn't wanted to trouble them with my own problems, but divorce is a big deal for our family. As Olivia, the daughter of the prestigious Green family, I didn't need a marriage alliance. I chose Ethan myself. I needed an heir for the Green legacy, but I couldn't find anyone I liked in the circle. Faced with Ethan's sincere pursuit, I told myself, why not give it a try, take a gamble? And here I am, miserably defeated. I have no one to blame but myself. I told my parents everything that had happened with Ethan, including the entire situation with Sophia, and shared my plans. His betrayal would result in consequences far beyond divorce. I would make the Carter family spit out everything they had taken in over the years. Divorce is no small matter. I thought my parents might urge me to be cautious for Mia's sake. But my father, Victor, puffing on a cigar, turned to me and said, "He's gotten a taste of power and doesn't want to bow down anymore. It's because we've fed him too much. As the daughter of the Green family, you don't have to tolerate this nonsense. If you've made up your mind, then let's proceed. Mia stays with us." Grace, my mother, decisively supported me as well. "That's right. Your dad and I may be old, but we're not pushovers. No matter what happens, we'll stand by our daughter. Mia's back with us, which is perfect. We'll take care of her." I lifted my head, unwilling to let the tears fall. How fortunate I was to have parents who loved me so dearly. Ethan, are you prepared to face the consequences of treating me like this? I stayed at my parents' house with Mia. Ethan called several times, but I didn't pick up. Eventually, he sent a message in anger, accusing me of being difficult and asking if I would only come back if he groveled. He even said, "Which husband doesn't act like this? Why am I the exception?" You see, I had chosen Ethan for his sincerity and passion, but it turned out that a mere few years of power had turned him into just another foul-smelling man like the rest. Grace started making all sorts of delicious pastries for Mia, while Victor played horsey with her, carrying her on his back. It was almost comical to see a business mogul who frequently appeared on financial magazines now so down to earth, letting his granddaughter's laughter spill onto his face without a care. They cared for Mia the way they had cared for me as a child. Those who love you will love every part of you, just as my parents love Mia. But Mia still missed her father. She often asked why he didn't come over. After a while, she began to grasp what was happening between Ethan and me. "Can you stop fighting, Mommy? I want you two to be together. Would you only be happy if I were with Daddy?" "Yes." "Mommy, do you not like me wanting Daddy?" My child's eyes were red with tears as she cried in my arms, and my heart felt like it was being pricked by needles. "No, sweetie, you have absolute freedom to feel however you want. Missing Daddy is normal. Grown-up problems shouldn't affect you. You'll see Daddy soon," I reassured her. The Green Group stopped supporting the Carter family. Several key projects were halted, creating severe financial strain on their company. The longer it dragged on, the bigger the losses. As expected, today Grace brought Ethan to apologize to me. "Liv, dear, Ethan was in the wrong, but we've scolded him for it already," Grace began. "It was just a drunken mistake, something no one wanted. I know about Sophia, a naive girl from the countryside who just graduated. She probably seduced Ethan for money. There are plenty of women like that out there. But none of them compare to Olivia. She manages such a massive family business single-handedly. Our Carter family owes so much to the Greens." Ethan sat silently on the couch, clenching his fists in barely concealed frustration. Grace glanced at him before turning her attention to Mia. "Where's Mia?" "Oh, Mimi, my precious granddaughter Grandma has missed you so much." Mia came bouncing down the stairs, and Grace scooped her up, showering her with affection. Victor and Grace had left the decision entirely up to me. Sitting on the other side of the couch, I watched the scene unfold without making a move. "Sweet Mia, persuade Mommy to come home with Daddy, won't you?" "Home? With both Mommy and Daddy?" Mia's clear eyes looked at Ethan expectantly. "Yes, together. We'll go home, and the family will be whole again." Ethan stood up and hugged Mia, urging her to convince me to go back. Looking at Mia's adoring and affectionate gaze toward Ethan, I thought of her as my one and only child, the heir to the Green legacy. After a moment's consideration, I agreed. I packed our belongings and returned to our marital home. At the entrance of the villa, as I walked ahead with Mia, we came across Sophia, who had been waiting there. "Did you make Ethan stop talking to me? You already have so much, why do you have to take this from me too?" Sophia's face was a mix of tears and venomous resentment. "Ethan truly cares about me. Before our college entrance exams, he promised that he would marry me one day. Do you know what he said after we slept together? He said, 'You're so boring. I thought all women were like this, too lazy to care, until I met you and finally understood what tenderness means. I'll be Mrs. Carter sooner or later. Just wait and see.'" Smack before I could say anything, Grace slapped Sophie so hard that she couldn't utter a word. "Auntie, no, that's not what I meant. I really love Ethan," Sophie stammered through her tears, looking utterly flustered. "What do you mean? Our family has been kind to you since you were young, and now you're trying to destroy my son's marriage. Do you think we don't know what girls like you are after? Graduating college and choosing to be a mistress, what else could it be but money? As long as I'm alive, don't even think about stepping into this house." Ethan quickly rushed forward to shield the sobbing Sophie. "Enough, she just graduated, she's barely more than a kid. Why are you hitting her? I know how to handle this, don't drag her into it." I couldn't help but laugh at the scene, a pair of star-crossed lovers, torn apart by circumstance. For a moment, I wanted to grab Olivia and her group of trust-fund friends to watch this drama unfold together. Grace pulled me into the master bedroom. "Olivia, don't worry. The Carter family owes everything to you for where we are today. Ethan might be foolish, but we adults know better. Don't stoop to his level. Take a look at these projects. Grace said, her face betraying a hint of sycophancy. Honestly, based on her logic, she didn't seem much different from Sophie. Sure, we're family, aren't we? I'll arrange a few more big projects, very lucrative ones for you, I said, raising an eyebrow and smiling with hidden intent. The bait was set. The expansion of the Carter projects continued smoothly, drawing in larger investments and operating on a broader scale. If managed well, they could gain access to previously unreachable wealth and ascend to the ranks of the elite. Grace left beaming, her face lit with excitement. Later, Ethan returned, his face full of resentment. He blamed me for pressuring his parents into submission, for getting involved with irrelevant people, and for holding on to his mistakes even though he claimed he was sincerely remorseful. Sophie, according to him, was just a naive and humble girl. I nearly choked. A naive girl who engages in car sex? I'd never seen one before. Ethan had become unrecognizable, and frankly, he and Sophie were a perfect match now. The projects progressed smoothly. Victor, who had a penchant for buying watches and cars, even called me. "This project is fantastic, Olivia. Keep pushing it forward and try to secure that plot of land as soon as the policy changes at year-end. When we make money, Daddy will buy you some jewelry," he added. Men are all like this. As long as you're managing the finances and keeping the household in order, everything will be fine. They always come around eventually. That girl Sophie doesn't matter, she's irrelevant. Even if she's kept on the side, it won't affect you. Don't take it too seriously. No wonder Ethan cared so much about his reputation. The root of the problem was right here. This family, Ethan cheating, Victor flaunting the money borrowed from my family's company to buy cars and watches. Grace clinging to me for favors still had unpaid debts from the Carter family's financial crisis. Not a single dime had been repaid. Without me, what would they amount to? I no longer cared whether Ethan came home or not, but I warned him not to let anything affect Mia. But the unexpected happened anyway. Mia was pushed by Sophie and fell down. When the nanny called me, my hands were trembling. Nothing had ever happened to Mia under my care all these years, but the moment Sophie turned up, my daughter got hurt. There was no way I'd believe it wasn't related. I drove home, my eyes red with fury, and saw Grace holding a crying Mia, half soothing and half scolding her. "How could you push Aunt Sophie? She's pregnant, and she's carrying your little brother. Don't you want a little brother or sister, Mia?" Sophie was crying pitifully in Ethan's arms, and Ethan glared at Mia. "She's carrying your brother, and you still dared to hurt him. Where did you learn to be so bossy and unreasonable?" Mia sobbed as the family doctor disinfected her wound. "Daddy, you're so unfair. Aunt Sophie said she wants to replace Mommy and scared me, saying nobody would want me anymore. You don't love Mia anymore. You're helping the bad guys. You and Grandma are helping the bad guys. Even the baby brother who's not born yet is more important than me. You don't love me anymore. I want Mommy." My child, left with no one to rely on, had been bullied to this extent. Smack, I slapped Sophie, silencing her cries instantly. The next second, I slapped Ethan across the face. "You call this taking care of our daughter? And now you're standing here taking care of your little mistress. Ethan, we're done. Mia is coming with me, you're not fit to be a father." Trembling, I held Mia close and took her to the hospital. The day Mia came home, I installed security cameras. We'll see what really happened. If Miss Sophie truly bullied my daughter, neither she nor the child she's carrying will have a good life ahead. As I carried Mia out, I felt a pang of sorrow. She had already seen the ugly side of adult conflicts, but Mia would one day inherit my company. It's better for her to recognize unworthy relationships and people sooner rather than later. Mia's arm had been scraped badly from Sophie's push, leaving a blurred patch of blood. At the time, Sophia dropped a bombshell. She was pregnant and expecting a boy. Grace, usually indifferent to her, suddenly began to defend her. "I only have one daughter, Mia, who took Olivia's last name. The lack of a male heir in the family has always been a sore point for Ethan's parents. Now that Sophia is carrying that piece of flesh, she's become the apple of their eye." In the surveillance footage, Sophia was seen encountering Mia on the stairs. "Do you know what's in my belly? Your little brother, say hi to your little brother," Sophia said, cornering Mia on the staircase with a venomous smile. "What brother? You're not my mom," Mia shot back. "This is your dad's child with me, so of course, he's your brother," Sophia insisted. "You're a bad woman, a homewrecker." Mia, despite her young age, had overheard similar things at daycare kids whose dads had mistresses didn't have happy families. "Bad woman? What an ill-mannered brat. Soon I'll be Mrs. Carter and I'll be your mom." Sophia's face twisted in anger, and she even reached out as if to grab Mia. Mia began crying, threatening to tell her dad. Panicked, Sophia accidentally pushed Mia into the corner of the stair railing during the scuffle. Instead of helping, she threw herself to the floor, pretending to be the victim. Watching the footage, particularly Sophia's venomous words and aggression toward Mia, I felt fury boiling up from the pit of my stomach. My hands shook with anger. I wanted to destroy that vile pair of scumbags. Sophia really outdid herself this time, scheming against a child. That family's life had clearly been too comfortable, so comfortable they dared to think I, Olivia, was some meek, spineless woman who depended on a man. The Carter family? It was time to close the net. News spread like wildfire after Ollie, CEO of our company, rushed to the hospital carrying Mia in his arms and then moved out of the marital home overnight. Rumors of a divorce lit up the internet. Soon after, videos emerged of a tearful, visibly pregnant Sophia begging for Ollie at the company's headquarters. The scandal caused both Carter Corp and our company's stocks to take a hit. Some clueless netizens even sympathized with her. "She's pregnant, for heaven's sake. Just let her in. Rich people are so cold-hearted. Maybe she has her reasons." There must be more to the story. Why else would she dare to confront a company like theirs? Of course, she dared. She was banking everything on that piece of flesh in her womb. The entire ordeal became the talk of the town. Fiona and the others even came by to ask me about it. Once I confirmed the truth, they sighed in disbelief. "I really thought you had the perfect life. Ethan didn't seem like that kind of guy. Who knew Sophia had such a knack for stirring up trouble?" Fiona said. "Do they think we're pushovers, going after a child?" "Absolutely not," another friend chimed in. "Don't worry, Liv, we'll back you up. My family's in the media business. If they want to play games, we can play too." A few days later, several major Carter Corp projects began to unravel. These were massive investments. If they lost the bid for a particular piece of land, their cash flow would dry up, and the project would consume all of Carter Corp's resources only to ultimately benefit us. After siphoning off so much money, it was time for the Carters to bleed a little. Meanwhile, Sophia had taken her sob story to the gates of the family estate, crying and pleading yet again. I found her antics increasingly nauseating. If I didn't confront her, she'd just keep showing up uninvited. Accompanied by Fiona and the others, I decided to pay her a visit. Sophia was at the gate, arguing with the security guards. "Please, let me in. Ethan is Olivia's husband, and I'm his assistant. I've been here before. There's so much gossip online right now. I just want to beg Olivia to let me go. Please. I'm pregnant, just let me in for the baby's sake, okay?" A crowd had gathered, some even filming the scene on their phones. What a spectacle. A pregnant woman claiming to have a good reason for her actions, conveniently leaving out the part where she destroyed a family and hurt a child. If I were a man, people might immediately label her a homewrecker, parading her pregnancy. "Oh my, Miss Sophia, what brings you here?" "Putting on another performance at the gates of our estate?" I said, my voice dripping with mockery. "Should I call the police to escort you out?" Sophia looked even more pitiful when she saw me, her tears flowing freely. Perhaps the support she'd gotten online had emboldened her. "I know you've never liked me, but I just want to talk to you. You've always refused to see me," she said, her voice trembling. "Talk? About what? About how you seduced a married man? About Ethan cheating on me? About how you hurt my daughter? Or about how you're using your pregnancy to stage these pathetic little dramas?" My words were sharp, cutting through any pretense. I laid her bare in front of everyone. Standing before her, I watched as her face grew paler. Leaning in close, I whispered, "You're nothing but a mistress. As long as I'm here, you and that thing in your belly will be like sewer rats unable to see the light of day. A pathetic, despicable parasite. You dare lay a finger on Mia. I'll make sure you live in eternal regret. I always keep my promises. Why won't you leave me alone? You think you can do whatever you want just because you're rich?" Sophia shrieked, her voice laced with venom as she glared at me, tears streaming down her face. Fiona and the others quickly stepped in, pulling her back. "Quick, everyone, start recording. This has nothing to do with us. This mistress is clearly unstable." Imagine having the nerve to play the victim after all this. Even with a baby bump, Ethan still hasn't married you. How pitiful, one friend quipped, shaking her head. This Miss Sophia was all about playing the poor and innocent last time, and now she's flipping the narrative entirely. Fiona and her friends at the party were clearly there to watch her humiliation. Remembering the shame I felt in front of these people, my face paled, as if I had been slapped multiple times. Ethan, what are you doing? She's pregnant. Ethan's sharp voice cut through the tension as he quickly shielded Sophia behind him. He'd been protecting Sophia so often these days that I couldn't even remember what it felt like when he used to be by my side during college. Let's go inside and talk, he said. There's been too much going on lately. I've seen the security footage and we need to discuss it. Even if she's at fault, Mia shouldn't have shoved her while she's pregnant. I stepped forward and slapped Ethan across the face. You're Mia's father. When she hurt her arm after being shoved, did you even care? And now you're here defending this mistress? What's so special about the baby in her belly? Do you want a son that badly? The room fell silent. Ethan's face turned red with anger after the public slap. So, what do you want me to do? Mia has the last name of Ollie, not mine. I don't even know how we ended up with a child. Do you have any idea the pressure I'm under? If you could just accept her, we'd all live in peace. Why do you insist on making a fuss? You truly are shameless, I said, as if seeing him for the first time. Realizing the gravity of his own words, Ethan softened. But we don't have to get divorced, Olivia. We don't, as long as you don't mind. Meeting Ethan's gaze, I replied, You're not just shameless, you're downright despicable. Get out. A mistress barging into our lives, a preference for a male heir, pregnancy as leverage, and a refusal to divorce every single detail was scandalous. Even in this social circle, it was juicy enough to leave Fiona and her friends wide-eyed. Wow, should we leak everything to the press? One of them asked. Why not? Tarnishing the Sterling family's reputation while earning money from the tabloids, I'm more than happy to oblige. After returning home, I even received a call from Ethan's parents, Victor and Grace. Their words were all about persuading me to swallow my pride. Men are just like that. We won't let Sophia into the house, Victor said. Ethan told us he never planned to marry Sophia, Grace added. He still wants to be with you. He wants Mia. But the child is innocent. Keep the baby and Sophia can live elsewhere, Victor proposed. The child can grow up under your care. He wouldn't feel like an outsider and could even be a companion to Mia. Wouldn't that be wonderful? All this just for a male heir. Their sudden change in attitude likely stemmed from the success of a few upcoming projects, making them feel entitled to negotiate with me. What a pity. Not only would I refuse to swallow my pride, but I was also prepared to set the Sterling family ablaze and let the fire burn until they realized who was right and who was wrong until they remembered who they were dealing with. I heard my own calm voice through the receiver. Who do you think you are to say such things to me? Mia, being only 4 or 5 years old, overheard that her father had come by only to defend Sophia. I decided not to hide the truth from her. Mia, I asked gently, Daddy and Mommy are going to separate. Will you be sad? Yes, she replied honestly, her big eyes brimming with emotion. But I know it's Daddy's fault. Daddy has a new wife and a new baby. He doesn't want me anymore. I pulled Mia into my arms, my heart aching as I heard her voice tremble. I know Mommy went back for me, but Daddy's actions hurt you deeply. And they hurt Mommy, too. Mia clung to me, her small body shaking with sobs. Mommy, I love Daddy, but I want you to be happy more. Mia, we don't need Daddy anymore. He's bad, she cried, her tiny frame trembling in my embrace. With a sigh, I thought about how precious this child was, far too precious for the Sterling family. When the policy shift caused the land project to fall through, it simultaneously halted several major projects. The Sterling family's finances were in chaos, with losses piling up everywhere. The full video was leaked, exposing Sophia as a knowing mistress and showing her cruel threats toward my child. The backlash reached even her hometown, affecting her father's job. The Sterlings' acceptance of Ethan's infidelity and their blatant preference for a male heir, going so far as to help their son support a mistress, was shocking even in our social circle. But that's just who the Sterlings are. The day I left with Mia, the surveillance footage captured their discussion. Victor was smoking a cigarette as he spoke. The project's almost done. After that, We won't have to be so wary of the Mitchell family. I'll finally buy those watches I wanted. They'll be pocket change by then. My son's been groveling in front of Olivia. What man could tolerate that? Strong, independent women who could ever like them? Grace patted Sophia's hand as she cried. Don't worry, just focus on having the baby. He'll definitely be the heir to the sterling fortune. When women have children, their hearts settle, she added. It's just a temporary grievance. Stay outside for a few years. Once Ethan's sweet talks Olivia, she'll come around. If she didn't love him, she wouldn't have married beneath her in the first place. And if Mia turns out useless, the Mitchell and Sterling legacies will both rest on this little grandson of ours, Victor concluded with a smug grin. Sophia, reassured, seemed to bask in the fantasy of her child inheriting two family empires. What they didn't anticipate was Sophia's audacity to storm into my home, blowing up their carefully spun narrative. Indeed, it's mind-boggling how someone like Sophia, fresh out of college, could get herself into such a mess. But this entire family of hers, they're downright repulsive, every single one of them. After the video was released online, the internet exploded with outrage. The once untouchable high society wife had revealed her true colors in the most disgraceful manner. Addicted to being a homewrecker, pregnant yet still as shameless as ever. And Ethan's family, seriously, why marry a capable woman when you can cling to your fragile ego? If you want respect, earn it. Resorting to cheating? Really? His parents are no better vile, disgusting people. The way Ollie's company supported theirs, and yet not a single ounce of gratitude. It's a classic farmer and snake tale. This whole family is revolting. Public opinion and the stock market took a heavy toll on Ethan's family business, while Ollie's company, as the victim, gained considerable support from the public. Fiona and her team strategically released the scandal through the most influential media outlets. Ethan's company descended into chaos. Their PR department was practically paralyzed, unable to control the damage. Within just a month, the financial strain and public backlash crushed their stock value. I brought out the debts Ethan's company owed me from before. The amount was more than enough to drive them into bankruptcy, my final blow. Victor and Grace, along with Ethan, called me incessantly during this time. I only had one condition: divorce him as quickly as possible, or I'd take legal action and push his company into liquidation. Ethan had no choice but to agree. Divorce could happen anytime, but I needed to ensure Mia genuinely wanted to stay with me, her mom. And I wanted to see Ethan's family fall into complete ruin before this saga ended. The day Ethan and I finalized the divorce at City Hall, it was rare to see such a sunny day. Ethan's eyes were slightly red, and he wanted to say more. Olivia, is this really it for us? Sophie's been causing a scene at home, crying endlessly. She's of no help at all. Dad and Mom are panicking. They've started selling off their jewelry, cars, and watches. If I didn't want that child, I cut him off mid-sentence. We were over a long time ago, Ethan. You won't have a good life with anyone, truly. But you know what? This works perfectly. The worse you're doing, the happier I am. Before he could respond, Sophie, pregnant belly and all, stormed toward me. You wretched woman, even after the divorce, you're still trying to cling to Ethan, aren't you? Look at how much you've ruined his life. Before I could react, Ethan stepped between us. What are you yelling about? If you possessed even half of Olivia's capability and family background, would I be in this mess? As though he had struck a nerve, Sophie screamed and started clawing at Ethan. What did you say? You despise me, don't you? You think she's capable, her family's superior, so why are you even with me? You liked me for being poor and helpless, worshipping you, didn't you? Now that you've got me, you're disgusted. Ethan, you're pathetic, you regret it, don't you? But do you think she'd ever take you back? Ignoring the ridiculous dog-eat-dog drama behind me, I glanced at the clear skies. It was time to pick up Mimi. This family thinking they could act all civil and still get the upper hand. They only learned their place after being hit hard enough. I heard Victor had sold off his beloved cars and watches to stave off bankruptcy. Grace called me multiple times, her tone increasingly desperate, even using Mimi's longing for her grandmother as an excuse to worm her way into my home. Olivia, how can you manage such a large corporation while raising a child all on your own? Ethan is Mimi's biological father. If he's not doing well, wouldn't it reflect poorly on you as well? Still scheming for Ollie's company, I stared coldly at the groveling woman. How could Olivia ever lose face? From start to finish, it's been your family's greed and despicable behavior that's brought this upon you. If you dare to harass me again, Ethan's family won't just be teetering on the brink of bankruptcy, they'll be completely wiped out. As she opened her mouth to protest, I cut her off sharply. If I see you again, even for a day, your family's downfall will accelerate. Not just bankruptcy, I can send your entire family back to the countryside to farm. Want to test me? I smiled at her, a smile filled with warning, watching her flee as though I were some sort of demon. Outside, the autumn rain brought a slight chill, but inside, everything was warm and cozy. Today, I made pumpkin cheese soup in the kitchen for Mimi. My parents were coaxing her to eat. There, that was my world.